Hi, this is Rick from For Community, creating community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God. The very first church I started to attend was when I was 13, and I was completely clueless about how to do it. After a few months, I noticed how everyone was dressing, and I noticed that I wasn't dressing anything like anybody else in the building, and I wanted to attempt to fit in. So here's what happened. Around the same time I started noticing that I wasn't dressing the same as others, someone else had noticed it also. And so this older guy came and gave me an old suit jacket that no longer fit him. So I've got an old guy suit jacket now. And so after that point, every single Sunday, my dress code became this: jeans, a t-shirt, running shoes, and an old guy's suit jacket that I stuffed into my backpack and took out when I got to the building. And you guessed it, I still really didn't look like all the other people who were there. What about you? Have you ever had a hard time fitting in when you're going to a church? If you've got a story about what you did to try to fit in, but it just went wrong anyways, please pause the video and share your story with whoever you're watching with. This video is based on my interpretation of 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 27 to 31. In this text, we learn something encouraging about where and how we fit in. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 27 to 31. All of you together are Christ's body, and each of you is a part of it. Here are some of the parts God has appointed for the church. First are apostles, second are prophets, third are teachers, then those who do miracles, those who have the gift of healing, those who can help others, those who have the gift of leadership, those who speak in unknown languages. Are we all apostles? Are we all prophets? Are we all teachers? Do we all have the power to do miracles? Do we all have the gifts of healing? Do we all have the ability to speak in an unknown language? Do we all have the ability to interpret unknown languages? Of course not. So you should earnestly desire the most helpful gifts. Here's the point that I'm going to try to make in this video. Be helpful to fit in. Now that may make you nervous, but hear me out. I have some experience going to churches, and feeling like I just didn't belong. There have been some really great places that I felt an instant connection with. However, there are others where it was like a nightmarish duel to the death to secure a spot on a pew just for the length of a sermon. In this text, I'm really hearing two things jump out at me. I hear the text saying something about what the church is, and I'm also hearing something about what the church does. And for me, this is pretty good stuff because I think it speaks to the issue of how to fit into a group of people who call themselves Christians and how to calm down the anxious feelings and shame around bad experiences. I think, personally, that this video is meant for those of you who have some church experience and are already following Jesus. Here are 2 points about how being helpful to fit in is actually a great idea. First, let's talk about the church. The text says, all of you together are Christ's body, and each of you is a part of it. So when I was a teen, 13 and beyond, I was the only family member heading to church most often. I didn't have a ride. I couldn't afford the bus. So I used my skateboard or a bicycle, but when I was younger, it was a skateboard. I'd put a suit jacket, that suit jacket I mentioned in the beginning, into my backpack, and I'd give myself about an hour to get there. When I got there, I did my best to dry off in the guy's washroom, and then I put the suit jacket on. So under the suit jacket was my t-shirt and jeans. And man, some people hated that. For some reason, they discerned that if you're going to go to church, you're going to need to dress the part. But I didn't dress the part. My family was broke, and no one was driving me anywhere for so many years. I thought that church was a place that I needed to go to connect with God. And I thought that church was a place I needed to go to in order to be accepted by God. And that wasn't a horrible concept. I mean, I went, I got connected to God, I grew. But it wasn't until I started to grow as a Jesus follower that I started to understand what this passage is actually saying and how I actually got it a little wrong. We don't go to church. We are the church. When we connect on Zoom or in a building, we aren't connecting in a church. We're not going to church. We're connecting as the church. The text doesn't actually use the word church. It uses the phrase Christ's body. Part of this is an illustration using the incarnation. God became a man. When Jesus was on earth, he had a physical body, and when he resurrected with his physical body. However, this illustration here is highlighting to us that Jesus' physical body is actually still on the planet. Jesus is physically interacting with the world as he interacts with it through you and I, through the church. We are all many pieces of Jesus' body. As we live as Jesus followers, communicating and demonstrating things about Jesus, we are part of God's activity on earth. So the illustration shows us that all of us together are part of God's one big plan to make himself known to everyone and to make the reality of his kingdom right here and right now to everyone. This, of course, is an illustration, but it's a powerful illustration. Church isn't a place you go to in order to try to find acceptance and community. You have been accepted, and you have community with God if you're a Jesus follower. You're gathering with other Jesus followers to have community with them. You've already got community with God. Now you're expanding that community to others. The church isn't the gateway to God. Jesus is the gateway to God. And once you've chosen to follow Jesus, you are now part of the church. The church is at home with you right now as you're watching this if you're a Jesus follower, because you are the church, at least a part of it. When you help your neighbors in secret or openly, the church is helping your neighbors. When you go to your pastor and you say, hey, the church needs to be doing this or that, well, sure, I guess you need to be doing this or that. And if you're doing it, then guess what? The church is doing this or that. Look at how awesome God has already made you to be, spiritually speaking. He has taken someone who used to be not connected with him and has made you part of his presence and work in this world. He has brought you into a community with him, into family, into friendship. You are far closer to God than any building you may go to on a Sunday can ever be. There's nothing wrong with buildings. I mean, go ahead. Say you're going to church if that's what you want to say. That's fine. Just remember what's actually happening here. You're not actually going to church. You're gathering as the church when you connect with other Jesus followers in whatever context you do that in. Okay, that's cool, but it's not all there is to say. Not everyone in the church is the same. We're all unique. We all have different capacities. So as the church, you have a particular role. So let's talk about its role. The text says, earnestly desire the most helpful gifts. So as this little teenager that I was when I was 13 and beyond, skateboarding to church, I got there quite stinky, a little awkward, and didn't really fit in with my suit jacket, my old guy suit jacket, over my t-shirt and jeans and running shoes. So it's not like I felt like I was at my best when I found a seat among the other people who were there, particularly among the other teens who were there. I mean, they were fine. I just wasn't too much like them. I couldn't dress well. I could rarely get rides. I couldn't really sit for too long either. So I spent most Sundays in the sound booth. There was this huge mixing board at the back of the church that had about 40 channels on it. It controlled the volume of the main speakers, monitors, all the mics, all the instruments in the band. It was huge, and it was my favorite place to be in the church because I could just show up as me, all my stinky self, because nobody sat anywhere close to me. I was there for so long that people just knew that that's where they would find me. And for the longest time, that was my thing. My function within the group of Jesus followers for a bunch of years was to look after the sound during the service. I did that all through my teens into my first year of Tyndale, as I was learning to be a pastor myself. Now, you are part of the church. You're not the whole church because there are many Jesus followers. You're part of that group, which is called the church. And you can't do everything. You can do only what you can do. And you're invited to do what you can do, to be helpful to the other Jesus followers so that the church can function together well, to be a testimony of the presence of Jesus in the world. The text lists a few obvious functions, obvious roles that we'd see as we gather together. There'd be a leader, a teacher, someone who prays, people who help. It's all good. It's not a complete list. It's an example list that Paul's using to make his point. There are lots of different roles. We all can't be just one of those roles. We all need to do what we can do rather than only do just one thing on that list. We need diversity. So whatever your thing is, just go for it. More than that, though, we've been given a guide to help us know exactly what we should be doing. If you've got many things that you can be doing and you're trying to figure out which one of those things you should do, well, here's the instruction. Do the thing that is most helpful. That's the instruction. Earnestly desire the most helpful gifts. Don't do the things that are going to, cause trouble or cause a mess. Don't do the things that will draw attention to yourself. Do the thing you can do that's most helpful to other Jesus followers so all of us together can function as the presence of Jesus in the world as best that we can. It doesn't matter what you do. As long as you're doing what you can do that's most helpful, the most helpful thing that's available for you to do. That's the direction. Be unique, embrace your diversity, embrace the diversity around you, and add to that diversity by being the helpful you that you can be. As you're being helpful, all the Jesus followers together are doing a great job to demonstrate and communicate Jesus. That's your spiritual gift. Your helpfulness is actually helping spiritually as the body works together to communicate and demonstrate Jesus. That is your spiritual gift. So I'm wondering, what is the most helpful thing you can do in the context that you find yourself in when you gather with other Jesus followers? What pathway is available? What leadership opportunity is available? What helpful opportunity is available to you? What do you need to create so that the group is just different and better? What do you need? And adding value. How can you add value to the context where you're in? What unique part of you could you contribute to make that gathering a little bit more awesome? Or at least take it up a notch or two, baby steps towards getting better? Okay, here's the summary. Jesus followers don't go to church. They are the church. And when they come together, they gather as the church. And when they gather, their function as part of the church is to do the thing they can do that is most helpful to the body so that it can communicate and demonstrate Jesus. So, my friend, I wonder, what is the thing that you can do in the group you find yourself in that would be really helpful so that your group can communicate and demonstrate Jesus together? That's it from me to you for now. Would you please like? Would you please share? Would you please subscribe? Would you please ask for the link for community, creating community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God? See you next time.